Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I am talking to my lovely friend Kate Taylor. She's a creativity and empowerment coach, a master NLP practitioner, and a clinical hypnotherapist. She's also a choir teacher, writer, and a speaker on a mission to help us live an embodied life full of creative expression. I love this. Practical Magic is Kate's take on her blended melting pot of tools, an approach in bringing spark, magic, and a bit of rock and roll colour to her clients' lives. She's got this fantastic thing going on at the moment, which she goes into lots of detail about in this episode. It's the Practical Magic Activation Deck. I have seen it with my very own eyes. It's a coaching toolkit aimed to help us all become our own life coaches. Can't say fairer than that. I know you're going to love this episode. Here it is. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Nikki. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Oh, I'm just so excited to be here. It's such a pleasure to speak with you, my darling.
Oh, well, the feeling is completely mutual. So, we've known each other a long time. If people don't know you, let's start there. What do you do? What are you all about?
What am I all about? Mainly
in 4 words.
Instagramming my dog, Bertie the Bedlington. No. I'm Kate Taylor, and I am a creativity and empowerment coach. And what that actually means is that I help people to live their most creative lives. And for me, living creatively is not about kind of if you've got a pencil or a paintbrush in your hand. It's about tuning into your essence, like this amazing mixing desk that we've got that's living inside of us, and dialing up to where we really want to get to, and living this life of like what I call full technicolor magic, and doing it in the way that we want to on our own terms. And I do that through this blended melting pot of amazing tools that I've got that I call Practical Magic. And it's about helping people get into their magic and taking practical action to do that. God, it sounds like I'm just reading off my blurb, doesn't it? But yeah, that's me.
And now I'm going to do it in French and then in German. I can translate it.
Backwards and forwards and in between.
Yeah, quite. So how did it all start? Let's go back to the beginning of sort of were you always creative? How did this start for you on this journey of, self-development and creating your own gig?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because actually when you start like looking way back at where things started, you can go right back to day one, essentially. But my work as a coach started in earnest when I was working. I used to work as head of client services in advertising agency world, which is an incredibly amazing job to work in, very fast paced and very people powered. And I love being around kind of creative people. I didn't ever consider myself to be creative because I wasn't doing the creative output. However, my work was about helping my clients to get to where they needed to get to, both from business objectives, but actually personal objectives as well. But also working very much with the teams that I worked with. So I worked with a lot of incredible people, and I loved pulling teams together and getting the best out of people. But what really struck me was the women that I used to work with in these environments, very male dominated. I know it's changing now, but women wouldn't put themselves forward. And there was often, their ideas would get either trodden down or taken on by somebody else's ego as their own. And I really recognized that women weren't standing in their power, and it was having a huge impact on their confidence and what they thought they were capable of doing. And also around that time, I was going through my own kind of what I call my midlife crisis, which was only in my early 30s. And I had had bereavement of both my parents, was still in a grieving process. I was in a marriage I didn't know if I wanted to be in. There was so much going on. I didn't know if it was a job that I wanted to do. And I'm sure you can recognize this as well, Nikki, is that you can get into that kind of mind soup of, and it doesn't matter how much white wine you consume, it doesn't find you the answers. So I was completely overwhelmed, confused. And actually somebody said to me, why don't you go and see a life coach? And I knew therapy has a great place, but I'd done a lot of that through grieving, and I wanted steps forward. So I went and saw this amazing guy called Matt, who I'm still really close with now. And it was amazing for just getting everything that was kind of all the tabs open in my brain and get them all out in front of me and make sense of what really mattered and what didn't matter and how I could get some clarity moving forward. And it completely changed my bloody life. Excuse me. So
amazing.
I found it so cathartic. I thought, wow, if it does this for me, imagine how I can help other women to do the same and step into themselves and what they want to be doing.
That's so interesting you say that about, isn't it funny that somehow, we've got this new wave of coaches now, we're sort of a bit old school now, but people are coming up through the ranks. But the stuff that we do and the stuff that we're talking about here, like actually taking some time for you, sitting back, reflecting, thinking about what you want and looking at it from that holistic point of view, was unheard of when we were at school. Like, absolutely. It would have been known as self-indulgent, or just be grateful for what you've got. Or, I'm sure people told you, like, oh, you're just grieving, like it'll get easier or time will pass. But you knew that you had to follow that path of exploring, like, what is this? What is going on? What do I need? And
also reflecting on that, I think having been through that process, and still, grief doesn't go away, no. It's still there. But having because I lost my parents in close succession to each other, and my mum very unexpectedly. Yeah. And what it did do is, obviously, when big things like this happen in your life, it completely changes the dial on things. So there is that moment of like, hang on a minute. I was always floating until that point. And I didn't know really, life was something that kind of seemed to happen to me rather than me being in control of it. So when I could take that self-reflection and go, hang on, what's really important to me as a human being? Like, this is an amazing opportunity for how I want to live my life. It was really a gift.
Yeah, and just, I bet there were so many surprises along the way, even, surprises of actually what you wanted, but also the stuff that you'd been, sorry, crazy London traffic, but also the stuff that maybe you'd been holding on to, or perhaps things that had become part of you, but actually weren't part of you. Somebody had told you that you're the sort of person who does X, Y, and Z. Or, I hear it sometimes in families of like, oh, you're the clever one, you're the creative one, you're the quiet one. And sometimes you look back and you go, hang about, that's not actually me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. 100%. It's so interesting, isn't it? The labels that get put on us. And I think a lot of mine was, I had an amazing upbringing and was always left the freedom to be able to choose whatever I wanted to do, and which I had done, but it was kind of like, I felt a little bit like a pinball. I'd kind of bounce off a few things and see if that worked, but wasn't really truly connected in with myself or what that meant. And I don't know, it was that certain time in their life when you do that reflection and you've got past your Saturn return of trying to work out who you are. And then you can actually go, no, I have a choice here to work out who I am. And I've got this amount of time in front of me. I'm going to make it really count. Yeah. And for me, that was a big lesson, because my mum for example, she worked really hard all her life as a nurse and caring for my dad. And it was only about 6 months into her retirement that she passed away. And she was living for her retirement. You know, she was working so hard to get there, and then it was taken away from her. So for me, that was amazing reflection to be able to go, hang on, I'm not doing that. No. I'm not going to wait until the end of this kind of work life to live. I'm going to do it now. So how do I do that and bring on all the elements of who I am and what I love doing into my work life, into my personal life, and make them 360, not just one thing?
Yeah, and not that sense of like living for the weekend. The amount of people that spend 60 hours in a job, like 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, just sort of willing that, you know, the hump day and then, the Monday blues. And I am really lucky, actually. I don't ever get that because I guess I do my own thing. And I'm very meticulous about that because if you're just living for a Friday night, blimey, there's a lot of stuff going on that, that you're not enjoying, I guess. So how did that move from you working in advertising to actually going, oh, well, I should maybe do this myself?
So I made the decision. Obviously, I had that moment of clarification when I was working with a coach. So very quickly understood that that's what I wanted to be doing. So I did training in that. I did training in neuro-linguistic programming as well. And for an amount of time, like it took a while to shift them over. And I was working in advertising while still doing coach training, you know, getting the clients, doing those things. And it just came to a natural point where I'd taken down my hours in what I was doing. I was building up the clients. And it just became a point where I had to really listen to myself and my body because I was becoming really super stressed out. I was doing all the hours. I live on the coast and I was commuting into London. So that was 4 hours a day. I was doing my work. I was seeing my clients. I was doing events. And there was just too many times I was coming home crying on the train. Yeah. And I was like, something has to give. Now, it's really difficult to sometimes make that leap to go, right, I'm gonna go for this thing. Yeah. But it was the time and I had to do it. And I just took the jump and I did it. I haven't looked back.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so scary because in that moment there's so many what ifs, and especially if you're feeling a bit vulnerable and scared about something, it's just that sense of all of those things come out to play and you're really faced with your fears of like, what happens if I can't pay my bills, or
totally.
I have to, you know, be vulnerable. And that thing about, I'm sure it was very, very tricky at the time, but knowing that you almost think that by the time you get in your 30s or your 40s, that you will have had this stuff figured out, or that you'll always know what to do. And like, you know, being a parent, I just think, oh, some other grown up will come round one day and like, you know, take care of this. And then there's suddenly that realization of like, oh, hang about, I'm not 19. I can't just go traveling and, you know, have a few wines. I've actually got to figure this out and make progress. So then you started coaching and really building that sense of who you were as a brand and going out alone. How did the practical magic element come into place? Because I know, when I did my coach training as well, you're sort of told the basics. It's like driving a car until you actually get on the motorway by yourself. You're like, oh, okay, this is what it means. This is what it means to be a true driver. But how did you start to bring all of those qualities to your work and not just be a middle of the road coach? Because I would never ever think of you as middle of the road.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, if I was ever middle of the road, I think I'd just give it all up and go and live somewhere like in an ashram. But yeah, it's a really interesting journey, and I don't think when you start out, you kind of like I say, I had these ideas that I was going to go back into the advertising world, and I was going to, you know, only work there, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but actually it's been such an organic process, and it's been one where I've been really enjoying being able to be very open to what comes my way and not necessarily have the end goal in mind. You know, you can create a vision of how you want your life to be, but it's really important to do that in a way that who you want to be spending your time with, what kind of energy of people you want to be around, and really calling them in. And that's a lot of the work that I did. And I do that a lot. I'm like, I put the back call out for the people that I love to work with, because when you're working with those kind of people, it feels so electric.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of how I came to finding practical magic and living creatively, it was a very organic process. And people, when you start talking about your story and who you are as a person, people connect, they buy people, so they connect in with that, don't they? I may not be, I won't be for some people if they're looking for somebody who's very different to me, very corporate focused. I'm just not that. I love a swear, we love to have a dance around, for me it's about kind of embodying. And it's been an interesting process, because a lot of the time I'd spent after setting up the business was very much about the practical elements of coaching and neurolinguistic programming, which I'm so fascinated by. But I was spending so much time in my head, and actually from an emotional point of view, I was still very, very disconnected and almost numb. And actually, when I look back at it now, this is not very long ago, it would have been classed as depression, because everything looked great on the outside. I was doing really well, but I couldn't tune into myself. I felt like I was completely no emotion, no feeling, no nothing. And that's quite difficult to be in that space when you're working with clients. And it was actually through a process of trying to find out what this energy was that was stuck in my body, that I tried everything, like literally everything. I tried Reiki, I tried tarot, I tried kinesiology, I went to every kind of program going, but I ended up going to this amazing class by my friends Lucy and Joe at Higher Selfie Workshop, where my friend Jane was giving a Koya class, which is a movement practice. And I found myself, and I really resisted it, but I found myself
Be very British about it. I'm sorry, we don't let our inhibitions go.
I was happy dancing in my bedroom. I was a dancer when I was, I love going clubbing and dancing, but it was just, I was like, no, I'm very practical now. Thank you. I'm a businesswoman. I don't dance. Right. Anyway, I found myself at the end flinging my arms around. I think dancing something like Katy Perry or Lady Gaga or something.
You were a firework.
And and literally this energy flooded through my body, and it was joy. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can feel again. And so for me, that was like my magic coming back. It sounds a bit cheesy, but that's really how I felt. So that kind of like started this whole journey of tuning into the conscious, the unconscious, the creativity that lives in, just getting us back and embodied so we can be connected to all of ourselves.
That's so true. I remember at your event a couple of weeks ago telling you that I'd done a lot of purging of my website, of getting rid of old content. Well, that all came out all over my face. Literally, it was just like snot and cold sores, and just like my skin just looked terrible. And it was a real reminder actually that your body is connected to your mind, and I know that is so true, and your heart and your soul and all of that, but it was so obvious. It was that thing of like it is living within all of you, and you need to get rid of it.
Yeah, and on a very, this is why it's practical magic, because on a very practical level, right, think about if you're trying to get ahead in something, or you want to make some plans on something, and your whole body is going under protest on it, and there's overwhelm going on in your life, or like you're saying, you have these very physical symptoms of cold sores and colds. Colds are very reflective of what's going on for us. And so for me, I think we're an amazing tuning fork, so that we can ask our bodies, as much as we're practically trying to move forward with things, ask our bodies to help us and show us how to do it. What do I need to learn from my emotions to help me get there? Yeah. And once you're on board with your body and your head, life is so much easier.
Totally. Like whenever I do, if I'm on the phone to, those phone calls where you just have to nail it, or you're sort of selling yourself, but without feeling like you are selling yourself to a journalist or pitching or something, I'm always like stomping around and kind of just moving and walking, because that's giving that energy to what I need to do, really. And so let's talk about the Kickstarter. How did that all come about? And it's live now, isn't it? People can check it out.
Yeah. So what I have done is I've created some tools, a toolkit, which is a practical magic activation deck. And what it is it's 50 plus cards that are all of my tools, essentially everything I use with my clients in a box. So, but it's done in a really kind of fun and creative way. So I always wanted to get something out into the world. I didn't know what that was going to be. I've tried to write a book. It didn't quite feel right. And I use cards in Koya. I use cards like as daily wisdom if you're stuck on something. I use cards to kind of just help me communicate with myself. Yeah. And they're so good because it's a bit like, you know, when you're stuck on something and sometimes you just see something or tune into something, you're like, oh, that's what's going on for me.
Yeah.
So that's what these are essentially. So they're organized under the 4 pillars of practical magic, which is calm, create, empower, and vitality. Because often we need to slow down to be able to come into ourselves, to find the creative essence in ourselves, and then we can fire it up and get the vibrancy in. So what's great about these cards is that yes, you can pull a card. Yes, you can tune into them. The animation, the illustrations are really super colourful and vibrant.
Oh, they're gorgeous. I've touched them myself. It sounds well pervy, but yeah, they're just so. I just absolutely loved it, and I've seen them in the flesh, people. So they're just I got listen when I pulled out. I mean, for goodness sake, it was a Beyonce moment. It really was.
Exactly. What's great about them is you can pull a card, that can be your kind of activation itself, but there's a book that goes alongside it, and in that book is an activation for every single card. So that might be like an NLP tool, it might be a coaching question, it might be a breathing exercise, there's some creative visualizations that you can go and download. So there's something you can do with every single one. So I've launched, basically I wanted to be able to create this by community. So what I've done is that I put it onto Kickstarter, which is a crowdfunding platform, so that people can back the printing of them, because, you know, obviously I'm self-publishing and it's blooming expensive exercise. And also I wanted them to be created by, I didn't want them to just be me putting them out into the world, because they are magic and they're infused with so much of what I've learned from everybody that I've worked with, that it felt right that everybody has part in their creation.
Yes. Yeah, and they're so, practical is so key because they're really easy to use. I think sometimes I can be put off with, you know, I know that cards or crystals or all sorts of things work for lots of people, but sometimes it's that sense of like, oh gosh, it's something else that I need to learn, or, you know, I really want the benefits now. But with the cards, you get so much from it without the kind of hard work of it. You can do the work that is actually going to matter, rather than going, okay, 2 kings, what does that mean? You can tell I haven't got on with cards. But yeah, it's very self-explanatory, and then you can pick out what you need from it.
Yeah, exactly. And often when you pull a card, I took them to an event I was at this Saturday, and it's quite incredible that every single person that pulls them, they're like, that makes total sense. I can't believe I've just pulled that card, because they are a communication with the self. You know, they're literally, any kind of card is a communication with your unconscious mind. Those things that we kind of have tried to maybe shut off because we're thinking we should do something else, or we're not kind of listening to our intuition. They're literally, I call them a ping of the pants of the soul.
Because we all know what we should be doing sometimes, or I don't know, sometimes it takes a while to be able to say no or let go of something or draw a line under it, because again, it's that thing of we feel like we should, or we were told that. And actually I always say I'm a massive learner, but I'm a big old learner, but also a massive rebel in the way. I hate being told what to do or the way that you should do things. It really irritates me.
100%. And the only, you know, we know this from coaching, but I wanted this to be a really empowering tool, because we've got the answers. You know, we spend so much time looking outside to, you know, either whether that's looking at what other people are doing and comparing ourselves or asking for advice, and it's still not feeling right.
Yeah.
And actually the only place to find the answers is in you.
Yeah.
So these just help you connect with that.
Definitely. And it's just something that you can get a lot of wisdom from in just a few minutes. You know, you don't have to go to Bali for a fortnight and find yourself. You can just have that thing of like, oh, actually, yeah, I need to make that call, or I need to take that off my website, or I don't want to do that anymore, or I need to ask my husband for help. Whatever it is, you know, you can quickly... It's all about tweaks, isn't it? You don't often have to make those huge, enormous changes in life. You can get loads of progress just by tweaking and reshaping or saying no. Yeah,
I love that. It's kind of what I would call pivoting. You know, it's just like checking in with the self, and that's the other thing as well, is like, again, like I was talking about earlier, it's the communication with the self, and it's that tuning into the body, because that embodiment's super important. So trusting intuition, trusting your body, listening to your body, like that card that you pulled is an incredible one for... We spend so much time in noise that actually when we stop to listen, you can have a really great conversation with yourself past that inner critic negative chatter. When you've let that kind of go, okay, I hear you there, I'm just going to put you on silent for a minute because I want to listen into something else. And then when you start listening into that, you know, we've got many voices within ourselves, but in that one going, do you want to give me some real guidance here? What's really going on? It will come up. It will tell you. It's like, I'm just worried about stuff, and we just need to slow things down a little bit.
Yeah, I had to turn off my notifications and leave some Facebook groups the other day, which if I was in your Facebook and I've now left, I'm going to explain why. But basically it is that sense of, sometimes I was trying to be in creation mode in an hour, and suddenly I got that, it's like having loads of conversations over the top of your head when you're trying to read a book. You're like, oh, bog off everyone, just like leave me be. And you have to, this is the thing, unless you do something about it, unless you consciously make a decision to make things better, there isn't going to be a big scary grown-up who's going to come along and say, okay guys, can you just let Nicky just do some work here? You have to put those things in place, especially if you're in your own business and, you know, creating something for yourself.
Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? Not to get distracted by ourselves, which is so easy to do. I mean, I know, you know, it's this thing is with all of my work, everything is, I teach what I need to learn. And what I'm really loving at the moment about these cards is that they come into my life at a time that I really need them as well.
Oh, it's so illuminating, that, isn't it? When you're like, oh my goodness, like I did a podcast the other week of, you know, sharing my advice on how to say no. I was the guest on that, and then we were just talking about it earlier. I got a really funky email last week where I had to literally just say no way, not ever, not now. And I was totally having to share my own wisdom, which was weird.
Yeah, exercise that muscle. It's not always easy to do, but it's and often, you know, when you are shifting and changing and doing things, there's all kinds of lessons that come up, isn't there? And they come up in the most sometimes very uncomfortable ways. Yeah. You know, to not put too light a point on it, and having something that can kind of just ground in with yourself, and knowing that you've got these tools is sometimes like, all right, I'm just gonna stop a minute and maybe listen to myself. Yeah, and just give yourself permission that it's okay. It's not self-indulgent, or it's not, you know, another thing that you will do in a few years when you truly have your breakdown. It's these daily actions, isn't it, that you can just keep connecting with. Oh, 100%. And this is the thing that keeps me, I think keeps me grounded, because I have low level anxiety all of the time. Like, I'm constantly, especially at the moment with putting my project out into the world, my ego has gone bonkers. Like at the weekend, I was like, well, I'm just going to press cancel on the backing. I'm just going to press stop on it all.
Don't you dare, Kate Taylor.
But, you know, because you're being vulnerable and you're putting yourself out there, and it's like, who the hell am I to do this? So, and I'm just saying this because we're all human beings. We're all completely, you know, having these issues and these things that we're dealing with all the time. But actually, what I've been really, really enjoying is connecting in with it and connecting in with the community and getting that energy, you know, from everyone around me. Yeah. It's been such a beautiful thing. So I just want to say thank you for everybody who's been involved and those of you who will be involved moving forward, because none of us can do this on our own, can we? It takes a village.
It really does. It really does. And sometimes you don't understand what that fear looks like until you're really in it, until you're really faced with it like a big scary beast, whatever that looks like, and you kind of go, oh, okay, this is how I'm going to have to wrestle with it and move with it. And sometimes you can just make huge progress even in, I don't know, a few minutes of just connecting with it, because sometimes you don't know what it is until you get there. It's like when I say to new parents, people go, have you got any advice? I'm like, no, nothing, because you won't know what it takes to be a parent or a business owner or put yourself out there on the internet until you do it, and you'll find your own way.
100%. And you're never going to get it wrong. Like, this is the thing, we always, in whatever capacity it is, whether it's being a parent, whether it's being a business owner, whether it's being just a human being, we're so worried that we're going to completely get everything wrong and completely screw it up that we're living in constant fear. There's no wrong. Like, there really isn't. We're just, all of us are making this up as we go along. Yeah. And I think that's just so joyful, because I know, you know, if this all goes horribly tits up, it will be in my eyes, and then I've only got to deal with myself around that. And if it does, well, massive learnings. You know, what's the thing that I can take out of it? You know, if we get things wrong, let's pivot, let's do something else, let's take a learning and cha-cha with it.
Change. Yeah, exactly. It's so true. It's so true. I've got one final question for you, which is, where would you like to be in 5 years' time in business and life? Do you know? Do you have the big vision, or are you seeing where it takes you?
If I feel into that question, it's a really interesting one, because I've spent most of my life up until this point searching for what's in front of me and never being quite present with where I am. And where I am right now is a really great place. It's taken me a long time to feel that, you know. So when I think about 5 years' time, like, I have these ideas of having some land in somewhere warm where I've got a retreat space and we're working on the land and bringing beautiful people in, and, you know, but it sounds really, I don't know, but I just want to be as happy as I feel like I am right now. And so wherever that is, and happy is a word that I don't really like to use because it's a state. Yeah. I guess present is the word that I want to use. So wherever I am in 5 years' time, I want to feel this presence. So I have complete non-attachment to it.
That is so fascinating, because I think sometimes people will say, I want to be in the big house, or I've bought my second car, or have a, you know, we've talked about this so much, but the 7-figure business. But it's like, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? And yeah, for me, it's just popped up something of like making sure that I am still saying yes to the stuff that I really want to do, and absolutely no way, Jose, to the stuff that I don't. And going to sleep in a bed that, oh my God, I love my bed. But yeah, that sort of, you know, doing those small things. I think sometimes we can think about living your best life as the big vision of the stuff on the outside, but yeah, you've really hit home with that. And it's the stuff on the inside as well.
Yeah. And there's the wonderful meditation, which is like the ideal day in 3 years. And it's a beautiful one for taking yourself just daydreaming, and really allowing the body and the unconscious and your energy to float around and dream things up. And when you're able to do that, it brings it into the present moment, because where we are right now is the only place we need to be, in my eyes. Now, as a coach, that's kind of a little bit, it can seem a bit against what I do. But what I always do with my clients is get them to think about where they want to be and feel into where they want to be, and how that connects with how they feel now, and where those gaps might be, and what they need to change in the present moment to feel that way.
Yes. Oh, Kate, you're so wise. I adore you. If people want to come and find out more and get the cards and just connect with you and see your multicolored, kaleidoscopic, beautiful Instagram love online, where should they go?
So obviously my home is my website, which is katetaylor.co. And if you're interested in the Kickstarter, it's open until May the 24th. And the thing is with Kickstarter is that we have to hit all of our funding or we get nada, which is really terrifying. So if you just search for Practical Magic on Kickstarter, you'll find the deck. But I'm also doing I've got some lovely events and stuff coming up in London and Brighton. So if anybody's based in the UK and they want to come and try out some Practical Magic, just go to the events page on my website and let's meet up in person.
Yes. And I was just going to say that people will probably go on Kate's website and go, oh my gosh, she's so this, she's so that. For both of us, it was never this polished kind of finished thing in the early days. And so I know a lot of people who listen to these might be just starting on whatever their next chapter is. And don't worry, it takes a bit of time to get where you want to go.
It does. And like I say, I will reiterate the point, we're all making this stuff up as we go along. So I'm a Libran, right? And as somebody said to me the other day about Librans looking like this swan, where they look really graceful for the top and underneath they're paddling away maniacally. That's pretty much me most of the time. So don't be. I think that's a really good point, Nikki. It's yes, the website looks like a certain way, but I'm a human being, and I have a lot of fun in what I do, but my life can be as messy and exhilarating and creative and steady, and as all of this rich tapestry of our whole lives. So I think it's a good point.
Oscar is a Libran as well, and he sometimes will go somewhere and he's really calm and cool and yeah, sure, I'm really excited about this soft play, and then he'll suddenly look at me oh, actually I'm not feeling my best self and I would like to just sit in a corner. It's so funny. I'm I didn't know that star sign very well beforehand, but I'm really sussing it out. Kate, thank you. You're amazing. Darling. You're so brilliant, and I can't wait to share this with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. NickyRaby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to NickyRaby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.